Okay, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's been a few weeks. I'd like to make a new video today, but a few things I just want to talk about before we do that. So, number one, music. If you follow my channel for music, I've been working on a bunch of songs. Just really been busy with other projects and my other job, working at an art gallery, and a lot of other stuff going on. But I do have a new track, hopefully coming next week, and there's a few more after that. So I'm always working on music, and yeah, it's gonna be pretty awesome. Number two, a lot of people have been asking me about Uman Rosh Hashanah this year. Obviously, there's a war in Ukraine. The airport in Kiev obviously is also closed, and you cannot fly into Ukraine. You can fly into neighboring countries, and people have been doing that for the last few months, and then crossing the border. Now, I'm not going to make videos like I did last year and the year before. There's so much information going on every day, new reports from this ambassador to Ukraine, from this ambassador to Israel, whatever, that they're going to close the borders, they're not going to close the borders, they're going to make an effort, they're going to see. I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea if I'm going to be in Uman for Rosh Hashanah. I haven't even looked into buying a ticket yet. The war is getting closer. It's not only in the east now, it's also in other parts, but still, thank you Hashem, Uman is still pretty quiet. But yeah, we don't know. Every day there's new things. That last week they said that they were going to close the border today, which is Monday, August 1st, but they didn't close the border yet. At least I have no idea if they did it. So main thing is just to keep praying, buy a ticket to neighboring countries. It's going to be a longer journey this year, because you have to travel through one border and then drive a few hours to Uman, depending on which country you fly into. There's a lot of updates. We'll be updating on Breslov News, on the Breslov News website, and there's a bunch of WhatsApp groups and other groups that are always posting updates. So I don't know what's going to be. I'm just as clueless as everybody else as to what's really going to happen at the end of this whole entire situation, because Ukraine kind of wants the to come in, but they also don't, because they don't want to take responsibility for everybody, chas v'shalom, in case something bad will happen. But everybody could do whatever they need to do, and hopefully the war will be over and everybody could be in Uman for Rosh Hashanah. That would be amazing. Now, we are going to, all of our videos we have been doing Rabbi Nachman's life in order, according to the Sefer Siach Sarfi Kodesh. I started Chelik Beis, the second part of the Sefer. Right now we've been reading through Chelik Aleph, but I started by myself reading Chelik Beis, and it's all about Rav Noson's life. So we'll also eventually do that. I have many videos on that also as well, but we're going to keep on reading anyway. And it talks about his father-in-law. His father-in-law in the Breslov history, the Breslov literature, whatever, Rabbi Dovid Tzvi HaGadol, the great Rabbi Dovid Tzvi, who was a very, very big tzaddik. He was a big misnagid against Hasidim, but the way that they write about him is that he was a gigantic tzaddik. So let's read a little bit about him, because he's awesome, and I found this information to be very interesting. So it says in the Sefer Yemei Mornat, which is Rav Noson's autobiography, that in the year Tov Kuf Nun Beis, again, I don't even know what year that is because I'm so bad at Hebrew dates, I went in Shidduchim with my father-in-law. I married his daughter. My father-in-law, Hagoyin HaTzadik HaMeforsam Harav Rabbi Dovid Tzvi Zal. And Shnas Tov Kuf Nun Gimel, Shabbos Nachamu, was my wedding in the Kilas Kodesh of Sharograd. And I was living with supported by my father-in-law for 2 years. So who did Rav Noson marry? Rav Noson married a woman. Her name was Esther Shenza. I think in other forms it calls her Esther Shendel, who was the daughter of Rabbi Dovid Tzvi Orbach, right? The great Rabbi Dovid Tzvi, his name was Rabbi Dovid Tzvi Orbach. He was known in Ukraine as the Groiser Rabbi Dovid Tzvi Tzvi HaGadol, the great Rabbi Dovid Tzvi. He was a very, very holy, fearful person, very serious dude, very serious person. And he was the Av Basin and the Rav in 3 major kihilos there, in the cities of Moilov, Kremenetz, and Sharograd, and all the other cities that were close to them in those areas, and also Nemirov, and also the city of Kanovlad, and also Mezhbush. And basically over 80 cities and villages were under his Rabbanis. So he was a pretty serious person. And he was a Talmud of the Noide Beyehuda. Here's a story. It says over here that now it's talking about Rav Noson's father-in-law. Rabbi Dovid Tzvi was orphaned from his father when he was 7 or 8 years old. And during the Shiva, his mother was crying, like, what's going to be with my son? Who's going to teach him Torah? And her husband, who had just passed away, Rabbi Dovid Tzvi's father, appeared to her, Rabbi Dovid Tzvi's mother, and said, I will learn with him. And it was that after he died, he came every night from the Garden of Eden to learn with his son, the orphan, for a few hours. And this went on for 8 years. Okay, this is pretty wild stuff. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about this publicly. That's how wild it is. He came all the way from Gan Eden to learn Torah. And nobody knew about this, but then somebody found out about it, and he stopped coming. Rav Noson tells over, this is known from other Breslov Sfarim also as well, that Rabbi Dovid Tzvi did not wash his hands for a Suda during the week, except because he had great Chumrus Yuserus, very serious stringencies about Netilas Yadayim, about washing one's hands before eating bread. Only on Shabbos he would wash his hands. He had great Chumrus Gedolis with 2 gigantic buckets of water. Zwei große Kibbelich Wasser. And he would tie his hands. I don't even know what that means. What does that mean, he would tie his hands? I don't know, it's pretty wild. Ubiyimois Hashavua, all he ate was 2.5 chatichos of mezainis during the day. And his daughter, who was the wife of Rav Noson, she was the one who made it. And she was the one who made it for him. Rav Noson continued praising his father-in-law one time, and he also said, I can't imagine, before I got close to Rabbi Nachman, I couldn't imagine how Moshe Rabbeinu could be bigger than my father-in-law. Meaning that, like, his father-in-law just appeared so holy and did all these things, couldn't understand how anybody else could be so holy. He wouldn't take off his clothing before he went to sleep. He didn't wash his hands for bread the whole week. 40 years he didn't sleep on a bed. He just leaned on a table. And obviously he would fall asleep and he had a candle in his hand so that when it melted in his hand he would wake up. Whoa, dude. It says over here that Rav Dovid Tzvi again mentions that he was the Rav of many cities and all these different things, and he was Meforsim Bigad Lusay, even between the Chasidim who went in the ways of the Baal Shem Tov. Because all the Tzaddikim showed him great respect and were very fearful of him and were scared of him and were in awe of him. And it says even Rabbi Baruch of Mezhbush, who was a big kaptan, I want to mention that, but okay, his Yor Mimenu Moed, he was very fearful of him, very in awe of him. It says over here, Rabbeinu said to Rav Noson one time, he says, your father was a tzaddik, but his only problem is that he's chelik on chasidim. No, on this he'll get halka achas yoser. He's talking about like one more malchus. What? It's something in Shemayim, I don't know. I think there's a story over here. So one time in the city of Moilov, it was the custom that when a bris happened, obviously Rabbi Dovid Tzvi would be the Tzaddik. So one time there was a son born to one of the Bali Batim in the city, and because Rabbi Dovid Tzvi was not in the city, they gave the honor of the Sandkoyis of being a Tzaddik to Rabbi Baruch of Mezhwush, who was in the city then. Mezhwush was very close to the city of Moilov. That's what it says in the footnote, according to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak. But then, all of a sudden, Rabbi Dovid Tzvi came back, and they didn't know what to do, because they didn't want to now make Rabbi Baruch of Mezhwush angry, because he was very machbid on things, he was a very big kapton, and he also didn't want to disrespect Rabbi Dovid Tzvi. So they went to the basin there, and they paskin that since Rabbi Dovid Tzvi is the Moyer the Asri, he was the leader of the city, so he's the one we have to be fearful of, and we have to give him the honor. So he went to tell Rabbi Baruch that since the Moed Asr thing, he has to give him this honor of being the Tzaddik. And then Rabbi Dovid Tzvi was walking to the Bris Milah, and he passed by the windows of Rabbi Baruch, and Rabbi Baruch was standing, and he saw him, and he said, "What can I do to you when Eliyahu Hanavi is dancing in front of your feet because of your great kedusha and tzidkis? I can't do anything." Not like he was going to do something; he was going to try to stop it or whatever. But that's pretty wild. So we see that this guy was, Rabbi Dovid Tzvi was a very, very holy tzaddik. This is a cute little story over here. It says in the base measures of Rabbi Dovid Tzvi, there was nobody went up to daven except whoever Rabbi Dovid Tzvi sent. One time, Rabbi Dovid Tzvi sent his son-in-law, not Rav Noson, his brother, his other son-in-law, who was the brother-in-law of Rav Noson, to daven Tfilas Musaf. He davened. It was very nice. And after he davened, after he finished praying the silent Shemona Esrei, he fell down and he couldn't get up. Or he got sick or whatever. I guess I had to replace him with someone else. But it says over here that when Rav Dovid Tzvi came to visit him, his son-in-law said to him, "I think the reason why I fell down in my weakness is because of the pneumius and the gaius I had when I was doing, like he had a big ego, like he was davening so nice, oh I'm so cool, whatever." And Rav Dovid Tzvi said to him, he says, "What's the schar that you get for praying? It's a mitzvah. And what's the einish that you get for a thing? You go to Gehenna. Okay, so you'll be in Gehenna, but at least you did a mitzvah." And it says over here that this is like a shtickle chassidish svara, a chedusha dik svara, not chassidish, a chedusha dik svara. You have to do the mitzvah no matter what. You got to do the mitzvah. After Pesach, on the day of Yotes Iyar, Rabbi Dovid Tzvi HaGadol passed away. And he's buried in the city of Moilov. Alright. So we learned a little bit about Rabbi Dovid Tzvi. So that's pretty awesome. And hopefully we'll learn more next week and keep going forever, hopefully.